welcome to the first ever episode of Tales of Crisis, a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast with myself, your host, Martin Swaffield, and tonight's my co-host is James Chalmers. Evening, Chalmers.
Good evening.
And how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. I'm excited to be doing another podcast. It's fun.
Excellent. So for those that aren't aware, both myself and Chalmers are podcasters of the Tales of Sigmar podcast, which is an Age of Sigmar podcast, focus on the northeast of England and Scotland tournament scene, among other things. And as we've both picked up Marvel Crisis Protocol, we thought we would do a podcast on that.
Yes. How hard can it be?
Exactly. Seasoned podcasters now. So, Chalmers, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, for those that haven't listened to our previous podcasts?
So I'm Chalmers, obviously. I'm from down south. I've moved up north about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I started Newcastle Warlords about 5 years ago, which is our local gaming group. And we get a good probably 30 to 40 people each club night pre-COVID. So obviously we've not had a club night in almost a year now.
Worryingly so.
Yeah. I go to lots and lots of events when we can. I have lots of armies. I normally paint up a new army for every event. And I'm just getting into Crisis Protocol. I think me and you bought it the same time, was it? More
or less, yeah.
Yeah. But mine kind of sat on the shelf for quite a while. It's only been the last few months that I've actually started painting them up. So I haven't bought any other packs yet. I'm kind of, unlike everything else, unlike when I do AOS and I just buy everything, this time I'm like, right, let's do the starter set first and then buy some extra characters. So that's the plan. I've got 3 more to do from the main set, and then I'm set. So at the minute, I'm just kind of learning the game on a TTS.
Excellent. Myself also from down south, but nowhere near as far south, more Yorkshire way. Been up in Newcastle for far too long now, it feels like. Been doing wargaming of one sort or another for similarly far too long, a good 30 years, shall we say.
Too long to count.
Exactly. First dips into it all was, like many people, 40k, like I say, probably about 30 years ago now, which makes me feel super old. Went through, I'd say, the majority of the Games Workshop games. Have played a few historical games, but never quite caught on with those. So this is my first real game that I've been super enthusiastic about outside of the Games Workshop family. And there's a number of differences from standard Games Workshop, which is half the appeal to me. It's fantastic. It feels really liberating to play something completely different. So we'll cover that in a later episode, but did a number of AOS armies just before this. As Chalmers said, picked up the box set just under a year ago, I would say. Sat on the shelf for a fair while and managed to get a physical game in real life in the summer. And I've only had one real life game, unfortunately, other than a few attempts with my 5-year-old son, which have varying success. And it's been fantastic. I picked it up on TTS with somebody else from Warlords, Thomas Carrot, and we played quite regularly on a Monday, and then joined a league, joined some online tournaments, and been pretty much hooked ever since. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. So as well as who we are individually, as we mentioned, we do the Tales of Sigmar podcast. That's something, Chalmers, you've been doing for quite a while now, and I kind of jumped on just over, well, it'd be more than a year now since we started doing that.
I've been doing it, I'm trying to think now, 3 years, I think, on and off. Like, we've had a few breaks and a couple of different co-hosts, but no, I mean, us two have been doing it for, probably about a year and a half now, I think?
Yeah, it was around November time we picked that up. And we're now created a Tales of Wargames family as such. So Tales of Sigmar and Tales of Crisis are both going to be part of that Tales of Wargame family, where we're going to do, well, you're already doing some Twitch stream painting on some of your stuff, and I've started streaming some of my Marvel Crisis Protocol TTS games on Twitch as well. So jump onto Twitch. We'll talk about how you can find us later on in the episode. For this episode, we just wanted to do a little bit of an intro and initial thoughts on Marvel Crisis Protocol, for those that are thinking about getting in or those that have bought the box set and it sat on a shelf somewhere, why do we love it? So, Chalmers, I'll let you start. Why do you love MCP?
I'm a massive comic nerd, and I love wargaming, so it's kind of the go-to game almost. No, I mean I am a massive Marvel fanboy. I kind of spent a lot of my wages when I was at college. I used to work 3 different jobs, so I used to have like quite a bit of a dispensable income, and I spent it all at the local comic shop with lots of subscriptions. So my garage, I've got 3 boxes full of comics, I think it is, from back then. I've not read as many recently. I've kind of, obviously, as I've got older and with a kid and family, I've kind of got other priorities. But no, I mean, the models look amazing for M2P. It's like some of the models there are absolutely stunning. I think there's probably only 2 models in the whole range so far that I'm just not a fan of. Everything else is just like it hits home, and like I think the joys of it is every single model is a character that you know and you kind of relate to, and you've got like a feeling about. So whether you've just watched the films or whether you're into properly into comics, etc., you'll know, oh, I know that one, and like obviously everyone knows Spider-Man, but you've got kind of the whole Black Order with Thanos and Ebony Maw and that, and then you've got the Crime Syndicate with Kingpin and all of these kind of iconic characters that everyone's kind of grown up with. And you can now just pick them up, paint them, and play a game with them. And it's easy to play game that's hard to master, and that's the kind of game I like. I tried playing the Batman game for a while, but that was just way too confusing. There's like so many rules on every character's card and like within the game itself, whereas MCP, it's a very straightforward rule set with lots of combos within the character cards itself.
Yeah, and I think, you look at a lot of war games and you kind of take historics out of it because that's slightly different, but most fantasy war games, you look at them and go, oh, well, got a lot of background writing to do, and to really get you into the game, you read that background and find some of it's great, some of it's lesser good. With Marvel, all of that's there. The game don't need to worry about any of that. As you say, there's a back catalogue of a good 60 years worth of comics out there, and films and cartoons. Personally, I never really got into the comics. I've started since playing the game to read more, and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. But I was a massive fanboy from the films, really bought into all of that. And then as we've gone on, I started to remember the TV cartoons I used to watch as a kid, many of which had slipped my memory, but listening to the theme tune of X-Men again the other week, that brings back fantastic memories. And me and my 5-year-old son have sat and watched quite a few of the old X-Men
original X-Men cartoons were amazing.
Yeah, so we've gone through those, and we've watched a couple of the Spider-Man ones as well, and it brings back fantastic memories. But as you say, there's so many iconic characters on there that you just look at them and you instantly recognize them, whether that be from the films, the comics, or the cartoons. And I've found as well, I am learning about some of them. Inhumans, which is the latest release that's just come out in America and is coming out in the UK next couple of weeks. Never heard of Inhumans before. And then I did a quick search, and I remember thinking, oh, actually, I remember seeing a couple of the episodes of the TV series, but hadn't really put 2 and 2 together, and then realised this and realised that. And yeah, it's fantastic because it all links so well at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And it's you can always have like your favourites, and you can just build around that. The moment they release a Gambit and Jubilee set for the next wave of X-Men, then I'm all over that one. Because Gambit was my favourite X-Men growing up, so I just cannot wait for that.
It's disappointing in the films, doesn't he? He only got a really small part in the films at the end of it. So yeah, I can definitely see there's Deadpool is also coming very soon, along with a couple of the others, and there's a massive furore about that, and you can tell there's certain characters, and I think Gambit will be one of those as well that people will just flock to. But for those that, like I say, haven't played a game yet or are only a couple in, for me, as gameplay goes, you kind of mentioned it. It's relatively simple to pick up, but quite difficult to master. And I think it has definitely got a real competitive edge to it. But at the same time, you can easily just play this for fun. It is a fun game. You've got superheroes that can throw other superheroes, or superheroes that can throw cars and buildings on top of each other and push them. And the rules are written really, really thematically. There's a good balance across it. I know people are talking about scope creep already, but even then, it's not this kind of scope creep that you see in other games. It's still, most of the scope creep is basically it's the newness. People haven't quite worked out how it all works yet. Once they do, it's perfectly balanced. So I think they've got that really well nailed. Now, whether or not they can keep that with the release schedule that they've got, because it's a pretty intense release schedule. We tend to be getting between 2 and 4 character boxes a month. Whether they can keep that up all the way through or not remains to be seen. But at the moment, they've managed to keep a really good balanced game that you can play competitively, but also play just for fun. And like I say, the fun elements, we've had quite a few games that have been fantastically thematic. And you just look at it and like, I'm controlling some of my favourite Marvel characters as they bounce around a board and fight other Marvel characters. It's fantastic. So yeah, I absolutely love it on both counts. I can easily see myself playing this in real life with beers and Pringles, as they say, on a night time with some mates. Similarly, I could easily see myself going to a real life tournament and playing this as competitively as I can play games.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, because we've got the Tales of Wargames YouTube channel, like with the size of the board as well, I can see this easily being a game that we could record a back report very easy when we can finally meet up and play. Yes. Just like you said, on the kitchen table, and you're not having to kind of, with the proper lighting and everything, you're not having to have a huge 6x4 board, etc., and all these massive armies. Like, just playing a game on that and recording it should be quite a straightforward thing. So
yeah, it's a 3 foot by 3 foot board for those that aren't sure. So as you say, it's not a massive size. I'm not sure it's quite classed as dining room table size, but it's easy to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the thing I like about skirmish games like this, is you can build the tables however you want them, and they can look amazing. Especially with it being a modern day game, like based in modern day, you can buy so many different MDF kits or printable scenery or anything like that, and you can create whatever kind of themed board you can think of. I've seen like subway stations and things like that with proper trains, and you can do like obviously the cityscapes or kind of anything that you can think of, you could probably have as a table.
Yeah, there's a lot of New York based ones obviously, but like you say, there's cosmic ones for Thanos, etc. There's Asgardian tables, there's a load of Wakandan tables that I've seen. Your imagination is the limit on this, it really is. And as you say, there's a number of MDF scenery out there that it's not quite the exact size, but it can easily do. I've picked up a couple of TT Combat ones that fit perfectly. The stuff that comes in the core box set is really good, and they've got some extra releases out there. They're a bit pricey, but again, they're great, and they tell you the size of all the terrain on the bottom. So for those that have picked up the box and wonder why their cars and buildings have got numbers at the bottom of them, there's a reason for that. Trust me, read the rules. And as we say, that there is plenty of fluff, and there is plenty of them to come. Even when you look at the films, you can easily go through the films and identify there's quite a few characters from the films that haven't been given models yet. There's some fan favourites like Fantastic Four. We don't have any of those guys yet. There are other in the pipeline, and one of the things that they've said is that the characters are characters at a point in time in the Marvel universe, and by that it means that they can produce more than one. So we've already got 2 Black Widows. We got them quite early on, but it means that you can have characters at different points in the Marvel universe. and you can have different rules for them. There's quite a few people talking about whether we'll get another Iron Man, because he came in the core box set but wasn't classed as a leader.
It would be a surprise if he didn't, because the amount of different variant Iron Man suits that he's featured in all the comics, it's kind of like they should just have a non-stop production line of different Iron Man suits.
We've got another Captain America planned to come out now. Whether that's going to be Steve Rogers Captain America or a different Captain America remains to be seen, but I think they are starting to line up some of these releases alongside some of the stuff coming out on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So we know there's a Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series planned in a couple of months' time, so whether or not we will see something related to that around the same time, not too sure. But yeah, the possibilities are quite literally endless on this. I started reading through the Thor set of comics, the more recent set, and there's so many characters in there that you think, oh, that could easily have a model. That could easily, just taking a single Marvel set of comics, running through it and going, well, we don't have an Odin yet. We don't have Sift. We don't have any of those guys. There's a whole raft there. Hemdall, etc. We don't have any of those guys. So, yeah, there's multiple ones that you can have all over the shop.
Yeah.
One of the other things I like about it, which is starting to change, but it is still has it for me, is the lack of what I would class from other games as an alpha strike. So there are many games, 40k is the one that springs to mind, but there are others where first turn you can easily lose a game. And some of the things about Marvel Crisis Protocol that I really like that kind of prevents this is a character doesn't just die. It gets dazed and then it flips and then they get to go in the following turn. Now, if you line it up correctly, yes, you can take out a character, you can daze them at the end of one round, and then if you get to go first in the next round, you could then knock them out and take them off the board. But that's one character, that's not going to be your entire army. There are a number of first turn plays that are starting to creep into the competitive element, where that exposes certain points, but even then there's quite easily at that point counter plays, etc., at that high level. But generally in a relaxed atmosphere, it's going to be a game that's going to go on quite a way through the game. You don't have that negative feeling of, oh, well, that was great, I've just painted that model and it just got killed straight away. Because you will always get the chance to do something with them unless somebody specifically targets it. So that's one part of it I really like. Another part that we haven't quite touched on is, and it's a bit that I'm missing at the moment, is the models we mentioned are great, but the artwork on some of the cards and the artwork on Team Tactics cards and the tokens, etc. I was sorting through my collection the other day because I was having a bit of a rejig, and I can't wait to actually use it in real life. All the parts of it that make up the game are just fantastic. So really looking forward to having some games in real life with it all. At the moment, we're just, as we mentioned, using TTS, which is, for those that don't know, Tabletop Simulator, something you can get on Steam. It has a mod for Marvel Crisis Protocol along with many others, and I'll be doing a video soon as to how to do that. But yeah, you can get that, and that's how we've been playing. But I feel like we've missed a large chunk of the real life elements that also I think work so well with the game.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, the real life elements is always better than playing on the computer. However, I do quite like the TTS element at the minute because you can play a lot more games on TTS in a smaller period of time than you can do in real life, if that makes sense. So you could almost play every single night without getting whinged at by the other half because you just sat on the computer rather than being out or doing anything. So
agreed, and the mod itself is very slick. So they've put a lot of work into the mod, and it's fantastic. The clicking buttons that just automatically do a number of things. For example, power phases, cleanup phases, dropping the tokens, moving the map around. All of that is taken care of. It is a fantastic one, and it does make life super simple. And I think even once we get to real life, those that are able to, I would always suggest would learn the game on the mod, because it makes life so much easier. But yeah, like I say, there were elements that I started to look at the other night, and I was like, I just put these in a box somewhere. You open up the packet, you take the model out, you paint the model, and then it all just goes in a box. Doesn't see the light of day again.
Doesn't see the light of day until you can actually use them in real life. But
yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean, the one thing I like with TTS is obviously you get access to everything. So if you can't afford to buy every single model out there, you can just play with all the range that's available, and you can also choose the ones that you kind of the ones that you're considering to pick up to paint and play with down the line. You can then go, right, I wonder what this actually does in game, and pick it in your roster, and then
absolutely
lay it on the table.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of war games out there that are currently experiencing that element of people just experimenting with random lists, etc. I'm currently painting up models that I just like the look of the models. Some of them I'm going to use in game, some of them I'm probably never going to use in game. And the models that I'm playing TTS with at the moment are not necessarily the models I have even bought, yet alone painted up. So there is a bit of freedom there, you're absolutely right. Which, again, fantastic. It lets you learn the game without having to invest. One thing
I'm doing the same, to be honest. I'm kind of like I said, I'm not buying any until I've finished painting the main set, but I'm also experimenting with a lot of different models, because I've kind of got 3 or 4 different lists of models that I want to buy and paint at some point. But obviously, you can't afford to buy. Well, you could afford to buy everything, but
yes, speaking of somebody we saw today who has quite literally bought everything.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, down the line, I'd love to get everything, but I need to kind of make strategic purchases at some point. So practicing with TTS and working out which ones I want to get first is probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and I suppose, 2 things on that. One of the things I'm really enjoying is being able to paint individual models and taking time on an individual model, but also being able to mix up different colours and know that I don't need to be able to reproduce that. One of the things I struggle with quite often in painting an entire army is I'll come up with a scheme or something, and then if I don't necessarily do anything on that for a couple of weeks, I'll come back to it and think, what colours did I use? How did I mix that? What was the ratio? You don't need to worry about any of that. You just paint the one model. The only thing I've kept the same is the bases, and I've got a relatively simple recipe for that is quite easy to do. So there's no real having to remember, what did I do there? How did I do that? Or how do I make this one look particularly special compared to that one?
Yeah.
And the other thing to point as well, kind of elephant in the room as such, I've heard a lot of people saying about the price of it. The individual packs are not cheap, I think it's fair to say. And if you do want to go out and collect the entire collection, it's not going to be cheap. But if you wanted to collect the entire AOS collection, or 40k collection, or, thinking of other games, it's going to be a lot more expensive. You get a lot more models, but I kind of feel the key is you only need 10 models to create your roster. If you're playing with mates and you don't really care about doing rosters, etc., you only need between 4 and 6 models on the table. Now you get 10 in the starter pack, so it is relatively accessible to get into to start with. Yes, if you want to collect them all, that's going to cost you a fortune. Yes, if you constantly changing in your, as we call, chasing the meta, as in constantly trying to have the best possible team, again, it's going to cost you. One of the things that is different here than many of the games I've played in the past is the cards that come with the models. And again, because we've been playing on TTS, we haven't been restricted on the team tactics cards or the crisis cards. Whereas when we come to play in real life, you'll only be able to use the ones that have come with the packets you've bought. I can see that potentially being an issue for some. I heard a number of people saying it's too expensive, but I think compared to other war games, there's very few war games that aren't expensive these days. I think it kind of falls in line. It's just you need a lot less models.
Yeah, I've kind of said that myself, that like I found it quite expensive when you price up a warband. But yeah, I can understand like you don't need as many models, and people go, well, work out the cost of what you do for an AOS army. But like for me, I'm like, well, yeah, I'd probably spend more in an AOS army, but I'd have a lot more models. But it is one of them things that if you can kind of settle on a kind of a roster that you're happy with, then once you've bought them, then that's it, and then you can just pick up one or two down the line, and it's not going to be. I mean, it could be a big expense from the offset, but actually, if you go right, these are the only models that I'm going to play with for the time being, then that's where you start with. And if you're with a group of mates and you're all wanting to play, then maybe chip in between all of you and get like kind of almost like the full range between a lot of you, so you can all kind of just share. Like when you're happy to meet up and go, right, okay, yeah, let's play, and here's the full range, and we'll just pick from it. That's another way of doing it.
Absolutely, and kind of we'll talk about AOS a lot and compare it to this because that's the two that we know the best. But the way I look at it is a big army like that, I'm probably going to spend as long painting 10 models as I will do a full army of those, because I tend to take more time on individuals when there's less to paint. And that to me is one of the value as such in a model, is how much time, because I've started to enjoy painting all of a sudden. I never used to. It was always just a means to an end so that I could get extra points or you didn't lose points when you went to a tournament and you didn't have a painted army.
Yeah.
But since we got into lockdown, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And I think, that's the other element for me is, if it depends how you rate them all, and depends what you value. But I can totally see the side that people say it is expensive, and let's be honest, you're talking on average around £30 for a character pack with 2 characters in, so not cheap. But as I say, you only need 10, and I think it's one of those ones, once you get into an area where you've got a fair few, you can start to add, as you say, you start to add into that. And again, you start with 10 as part of the core box set, so if you want to play one of those affiliations, so Avengers or Cabal, you can easily do that and then start to drop things in as you grow.
Yeah, and that is the best place to start, is that starter set, because you get scenery, you get, like you said, 10 models, which you've got your kind of favourites of the Avengers with Spider-Man, Captain America, or Iron Man. You've got, Red Skull, you've got Ultron,
yeah,
and you get all of that scenery and the rules and all the tokens. So without a shadow of a doubt, pick up that, because that's the best value for money you're going to get.
Absolutely, and I think I picked mine up for about £65-70. I know varying prices depending on where and how you pick them up, but 2 or 3 character box sets worth. It's really good value. So yeah, absolutely go pick that up if you're thinking about it. It's a great game by itself, even if you don't buy anything else for it. So one of the plans going forward, so I think we've talked about this, we want to do the same once we get back to real life format that we do for Tales of Sigmar, but just for Marvel Crisis Protocol. So that is tournament reports, reviews of releases, and talking about the local scene. We currently don't have a local scene due to the current pandemic, so we are going to do things a little differently to start with until we can actually get back to some form of normality. So we're going to focus on some of the TTS tournaments and leagues that have been happening. We're going to do a more in-depth episode, probably the next episode, around why play and for beginners. And then we're going to do a set of mini episodes called Mini Crisis. It's a Mini Crisis series where we're just going to focus on different elements of the game. And it's going to be aimed at beginners or people interested in getting into the game, those that maybe haven't played lots of games yet. Just trying to explain the basics, trying to get people used to it all. We really want to build the game. As hopefully you've picked up, I'm pretty enthusiastic about it, and I really see this as a great game going forward. So I would love to be able to bring more people in, and as I say, the more the merrier. There's been a number of people that we're friends with from the AOS scene that have either shown interest or have started to pick up a few bits here and there, mainly just to paint, because at the end of the day we're all geeks and we all love Marvel or comics or DC or something along those lines, so it's no real surprise. And as you say, at the end of the day, it's wargaming and it's comic heroes, so what's not to like?
A winning combination.
It is a winning combination, as you say. So hopefully we will get a northeastern Scotland scene once things come back to normality. I'll definitely happily run a couple of tournaments to try and drive some interest, some beginner ones and some more intermediate ones. So yeah, that's the aim for it. Like I say, for those that have listened to us in the past, that's where we'll be going. You'll know where we're going. For those that are new, welcome. And yeah, we'll do some beginner ones to start with, and then once normality returns, we'll go back to the scene. But again, we'll do episodes here and there, more focused around the beginners and those getting into the game, and to try and build the hobby, build the scene. So, Chalmers, for those that have been converted, where can they find you on the social medias?
So I am at Tales of Wargames on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch.
Excellent. So there's a new Twitch channel then.
There is. I did the first stream on Friday, so it went all right. Yeah, I'm going to be painting AOS and Marvel on Twitch. Try and aim to do kind of 3 nights a week. It's just working out which nights to do. It's the the fun. I did say Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, but I don't think that's going to work now. So I need to kind of replan to and reschedule bits. But no, I'm kind of doing that, and I'm going to be doing some Marvel painting videos on YouTube as well. So just on some of the characters and how to kind of speed paint / paint them. I kind of don't. Yeah, I know. I don't really want to say speed paint because it's not going to be a speed paint, but I don't want to say paint because it's not like to the massively amazing
it's tabletop
standards.
Standard, isn't it? It's getting a decent tabletop standard for your models.
Yes. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So there'll be a few hacks in there and cheats and how to do bits, and because I can paint quite quickly to a decent standard, so it'll be kind of doing some of the models on that. It's just, like I said, working out which characters to get and then planning on which videos to do. So we're going to be doing a bit of that, and as we mentioned, some of the battle reports down the line and things like that. So this year is kind of a focus on that Twitch and YouTube and launching this extra podcast, and all falling under the Tales of Wargames brand. So it should be fun. A fun year ahead.
Indeed. And for myself, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at martinswaffield, and you can also catch me on Twitch at Tales of Crisis. I've streamed a couple of TTS episodes so far. Had a couple of issues where it's dropped out, so I need to work on that before the next lot go on. But I'll be definitely adding to that as we go. Probably I have a regular Monday night slot where I play a couple of regulars, and I'll be streaming those going forward. So definitely on a Monday, and then hopefully we can jump on at different points.
Excellent. And everything will be on the Tales of Wargames website, which is www.talesofwargames.com.
There you go. Go check it out. So thank you very much, Chalmers, and thank you very much, listeners. I hope to catch up with you all later.
Take care.